2006 and 2007. Of course, the statement doesn't happen until that time because VRA, for obvious reasons, the system. You have the assets, and you have the power to look for that somebody wants to take it away. If AAU, another company, or another entity comes to take AAU away from ourselves, and please you resist. So that was it. Then they saw that the National Energy Board itself is a small unit. That means that area called the Ministry of Fuel and Power should have to be increased because energy issue is not only fuel and electricity. Now renewables are coming in. The issue of food fuel is coming in. Efficiency is coming in. So now we should create a Ministry of Energy. So that Ministry of Energy was created. The National Energy Board law was repealed, and then a technical ring to be established then became Energy Commission, which will look at all the energy issues in Ghana, and not only power, electricity, alone, the use of fuel, the use of food, and the rest. So Energy Commission Act was set up, and among the functions of the commission are to prepare, review, update periodically indicative national energy plans for the government. And I know that obviously this question will be in your mind. If Energy Commission has been established as far back as 20 years plus ago, then why did you do so? Has Energy Commission not been planning or not? As you go, you know the issues. Recommend national policies for development and utilization of indigenous energy resources and renewable energy, so that Ghana's indigenous energy resources, Energy Commission should make recommendations. And since you have, as I said, renewable energy resources, that is also included. I advise Secretariat Minister on national policies for efficient, reliable and safe supply of electricity and natural gas. And the recent natural gas exploration also comes into your mind. What have you done to prevent these gas explosions and these electricity wiring issues which is creating this? So all these things are there. So we did indicative plan, and the definition for indicative plans have been stated there. Then, aside the indicative plan, we have the National Development Planning Commission. And ideally, all national planning have to be fed to the National Development Planning Commission. That's an entity in Ghana. So the National Development Planning Commission will establish the National Development Plan, like the Vision 2020, which was done. It was established by the National Development Planning Commission. Then the rest will feed it. That okay, if you want to become a middle income country by 2020, how much energy will you require? So that's how they structure it. And the national, as I said, the NDPC have now have the Ghana's long-term development plan for 2047. We are also feeding. So our plan activities, one is to feed the very long-term development plan, and then short and medium-term development plan. Energy Commission does that. Then there are other planning that is done by GRICO and electricity company of Ghana. And we are mentioning it because at times you will see that their projections are not in line with that of Energy Commission. And the reasons are foolish. They do what you call a kind of extrapolation based on their market situation. So that if Dumso occurred this year, energy VRA and ECD will just extrapolate based on the Dumso. But you should know that there is a difference between energy demand and energy consumption. Energy demand is what you actually need to meet your economic needs. Consumption is what you actually consume. Whether it is enough or not, that's it. And they will do the consumption needs. We're looking at how things are going. This is what you can supply to Ghana, whether it is sufficient or not. But Energy Commission will say that given our economic needs, our population, the level of our population, this is what we need. So we do what is going to indicate that based on the economic projections, not extrapolating what you consumed last year and predicting what is likely to go through next year. So these are the difference. And there have also been support for the USAID to do some integrated master plan also for Ghana. Now, the Strategic National Energy Plan, the first one was done and submitted in 2006, and recommendations were made for government. It involved demand forecast and the rest, along line with Vision 2020 and other things. And one area that we see as a problem, after raising that question, why are things not happening, is that when the recommendations are sent to government, implementation becomes an issue. So it's not that we are not planning in Ghana. In fact, to some of us here, what the doom so, we saw it like a prophecy being fulfilled. We saw it coming as far back as 2010. When we did our assessment, but we saw that the recommendations being given to government were not being planned, were not being implemented. So that's the issue. So we will do the planning, tell the government to do this and that to avoid this. When it comes to implementation, there are a whole lot of challenges. Some due to money, because you need money to put that and do the plans. Some are political, and you all know in Ghana. If one starts it, another one is continuing, it's another issue. So all these issues are there. So, strategic plan, we take into account a lot of issues, even the issue of environmental impact, not only costs and the rest. So that we come up with an optimum supply base with minimal environmental impact, low cost as much as possible, security as much as possible, because you can go for a cheap source of power, but the fuel supply will not be secure. Today you get the fuel, it will not get fuel. That's the experience we got in Nigeria when we were getting the West African gas pipeline, and it contributed to the issue also. So these are some of the energy sector breakdowns and how the energy systems go. Electricity, you have the generation system, the transmission system, and the distribution systems. And we supply that, we block the supply, the consumer into this block, residential, commercial, then we have the transportation industry, agriculture, and fisheries, and the rest. And these are the steps that we take in the Strategic National Energy Plan. Since we are academics, we will ask you what are your methodologies. So at least you also consideration of our methodologies, and then basis for your assumptions and those kind of things. It's not okay. It's not okay now. So is it coming or the hand outside? Okay, thank you. So these are all the assessments that we do. Some SWOT analysis are done, some assumptions are put in place, and the rest. And then we do this planning. The Energy Commission started it, as I stated, we completed the first one in 2006 and came out with our report. And if you go to our website, you will see it there. And these are some of the, the processes we went through. In fact, there was a steering committee, a technical committee, a project management team, and we also engaged the stakeholders. The universities were involved, the consumers were involved, the industry was involved, and so on and so forth. These are some of the, the recommendations made to the government on the petroleum sector. And we also recommended more competitive regulatory regime to conduct upstream petroleum operations in Ghana in face of favorable conditions in Nigeria, like Cote d'Ivoire and the rest. I want to say upstream in the petroleum sector. The upstream is the exploration and the production of oil. Then the downstream is the refineries and the rest, distribution of refined products. So all these things were done. Now, this graph also sort of confirm our argument. The more you want to grow economically, the more you consume. I think it's not clear, but if the distribution is given to you privately, you see that the countries that have made it are having high human development index, and then they are having high energy consumption per capita. And those who have low energy consumption per capita at the left side of the graph have low human development index. Now, these are some assumptions that have gone into planning for the 2057 NDPC planning. Ghana's population is now around 30 million, but 2047 will be 50 thereof. Upper middle income country. Install capacity, we are talking about 50,000 megawatts, about 50 times the capacity of Akosombo. That's what you have to supply. So if you want to be big, then you have to invest more. So that's how it is. And these are some of our energy demand implications that we've gotten. I mean, just for your consumption as academicians. Now we have the projections that we made. The lines are to do with the installed capacity in power requirement, how many megawatts of electricity. And then the blocks is the energy consumed. So these are some of the projections we made up to the year 2030. We have the baseline scenario and high economic growth scenario between now and 2030. And we have the Strategic National Energy Plan scenario. We have the utilities master plan. And you see that, as I said, the utility master plan is just tracing how much we are consuming and the most likely consumption level as the time goes on. Do you get it? So it's low. But the question is that it also corresponds to the low economic growth situation that we have, which we don't want. So the argument is that if you want to go high, then SNAP is saying that you are going to consume high amount of energy. If you even want to go even higher and want to be like America, then prepare even for the even more higher energy consumption. So these are to tell you the relation between energy and then this economic growth. We did some optimizations, and between now and 2030, these are some of the power plants and then the renewables and the rest that are expected to come on board. And you could see that beyond 2030 to 2047, nuclear power is becoming prominent. Because at that time, then the demand is very, very huge. If you are talking about 50,000 megawatts and the rest, then nuclear even has to come in as one of the source. You have to be importing natural gas in form of liquefied natural gas. Renewable also is playing its role, and then through solar and wind. So now, without a proper aggregation of an energy mix, we can achieve our economic growth. So that's what this one is saying. No single source can meet it. We need an aggregation of an energy mix. Now, planning challenges, and these are the areas. As usual in the developing countries, lack of funds. So this will be about the last slide. Lack of funds is an issue. Lack of resources. We need this and it's not there. We need that and it's not there. Now, the advisory position of Energy Commission is an issue. Energy Commission cannot hold the government here and say that we told you to do this and you didn't do it. You just advise. And as I said, in most cases, there's a problem of implementation. When you met at our planning week celebration, maybe the newspapers captured, that was the main issue of discussing. That the problem is not that we have not been planning, and academicians here will tell me that the problem is not that the research have not been being done. The research are being done, but who implements it? They remain on the library shelf. And whenever there's crisis, then they call for emergency meetings to build a plant. You can't build a plant in a month. It takes about 3-4 years. And this is the issue. So that's the critical issue. You see, there's also issue of confusion. Requisite manpower and resources, and I think that's relevant to our colleagues here. We need people to be trained in the energy sector to understand the issues so that whenever they are employed, they can also come out with their best knowledge-based modeling, analytical skills, and publications. Requisite qualifications. Honestly, you can't take an SHS person to do this kind of work. In some cases, even BSc degree will not be enough. You need somebody with at least a master's degree. And if all these things are coming in, then you see that it's such a challenge if the training system is not properly done, or those who are trained are not well exposed to issues. So thank you. And then I think as time goes on, you pick some issues about the energy sector and you put your questions down, and during the dialogue time, we discuss the issues at stake. Thank you.
We can do better. Please let's give him a round of applause. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Enison, for that insightful presentation. I'm sure we're writing our questions, we're noting our questions down as he was presenting, so that once we get to the dialogue time, we can actually ask him to respond to some of the issues. At this point, I would like to call on Madam Eunice Efua Atefua. She's a student and she would make a presentation on her project work. Please introduce yourself and your institution, and then you can start.
Thank you very much. Good morning. In the person of Eunice Efua Atefua, I'm from KNUST, specifically the Regional Water and Environmental Sanitation Department. One may ask, what is a water specialist doing here? Yes. When the chairman was speaking, it was Mr. Enison. He was speaking about Ghana tapping into the resources that we have available. Fortunately for Ghana, we find ourselves in the tropics, yes, so solar is available for us, that's true. But another resource which is always available and is renewable, will never go into extinction if managed properly, is water. And fortunately, hydropower can be generated from water. So then what can we do differently that can help us to get energy that is renewable, sustainable, cheap, and also cheap? That's what I'm presenting on. So I indulge you to give me your maximum attention. Not 15. Okay, no problem. No, it's not. No. I think you can close it and open it. Okay, as we wait for the presentation, I think I can begin so that we save time and energy. So we would all attest to the fact that in recent times, energy is needed to bridge the gap between developing countries and the developed countries. Mr. Enison was saying that if we want to be like America, it means we are going to consume more energy. Yes, that is the fact on the ground. So my presentation is on small hydropower development along the Ankobra Basin. This research was done with Dr. Anyumedu from KNUST and then Dr. Eriko Fosu Entry from the University of Energy and Natural Resources. So this is my presentation outline. I'll tell you why hydropower is renewable, my research, that's small hydropower, the conclusion, and then a few recommendations. So as I mentioned earlier on, in the 21st century, energy is of essence to bring the gap between developing countries and developed countries, because technology and innovation, trust me, are the driving forces, whether we like it or not. Sources of energy in Ghana include hydro, solar, thermal, biogas, which has recently come up. So then, why am I saying hydropower is renewable? Yes, over the years, we've seen that there are at least 3 hydropower facilities in Ghana. That's the Bui, Akosombo, and then the Pong. Yes. So what I'm talking about, small hydropower, is not about constructing a very large dam or storing a very vast amount of water, which, when in the case of droughts, will not reach a certain volume and hence power cannot be produced. I'm talking about small hydropower, which has been proven to be clean and renewable by Kruse et al. And also this kind of hydropower I'm talking about, it has very little impact on the environment because large amount of water is not stored. And also the amount of flue gases or greenhouse gases emitted to the environment is very minimal. So it's clean, it's affordable and cheap. And with a little technology, you'll be able to harness power from this source of energy. So my research was basically done in the Accra Basin. And my main objective was to assess small hydropower potential along the Accra Basin. My objectives, first of all, I wanted to know what is happening in the basin by using land use, land cover characteristics to assess the exact sites along the river where energy can be harnessed, and also to estimate the energy available at the proposed sites that I'm talking about. So this is the Accra Basin. Most of it lies in the western region. Slice parts of it lie in the Ashanti and the central regions, where towns like Tanoso and other places. The rainfall district, why Accra Basin? The western region has been said to receive the maximum amount of rain, yet there is no power that is being tapped from our rivers in the western region. So this research seeks to tap the rainfall that is flowing in the streams from the western region. The rainfall distribution varies as you go down the basin. So the methodology I used, I'm sorry, this may seem too technical, but I'll try and break it down for all of us here to understand. With the land use, land cover, it uses satellite images from the USGS website, and then it uses maximum likelihood algorithms to classify what is happening on the surface of the land. So if I come to this area, for instance, I'll be able to see that when I come to AAU, there is a building on this land. Therefore, there is a cover that is not water or anything else, but is settlement. I went on to locate the small hydropower sites by use in a GIS environment using contour maps and what we call stream order classification. So using the stream order and the contour maps overlaid, I had certain criteria. And the criteria involved the stream order should be 3 or above the maximum. The minimum head at that particular site should be 8 meters. The stream reach should not be more than 110 meters. And then also I considered spacing. In the events where we are planning to pond or store water, there should be enough space between one hydropower point and the next. And then that was put in a model called soil water analysis tool to be able to model the runoff or the stream flow in the area, and hence the energy can be developed. I must say that the energy I sourced for this research was for 90% dependability for dry years, which is to say that in the event of drought, in the event of low flows, in the driest of years, my source of power should always be 90% available. So this is the land use, land cover. It means that in the Accra Basin, there are a lot of vegetation. There's very little land cover, which is settlements, factories, or anything of that sort. And then most of it is forest. So let's say we are keeping all the forest parts of the Accra Basin. Yes, of course, we have to increase the settlement because more people are being born, more development is going on, and we need to provide space for factories. Yes, so it means that we are going to increase the area that is covered by the built-up, and therefore energy must be made available for this new cover. So my methodology, first of all, gave me 23 different sites along the Accra Basin where energy can be tapped. And out of these 23, we ended up with 9 sites that gave us more reliable energy. And considering the spacing I spoke about earlier, that in the events where we are trying to store the water from one point to the other, there shouldn't be overlap in the water levels. So I have 9 points with a maximum head of 18 meters and minimum head of 8 meters. So this is typically called the flow duration curve or power duration curve. This helps you to obtain the amount of power that can be tapped from a particular point along the stream. So for my 90% dependability, this graph is specifically for point A, that's the point 1. So for 90% dependability, the amount of power that can be tapped is 7.3. Sorry, the amount of flow is 7.3, which corresponds to a firm power of 537 kilowatts. Okay. In conclusion, vegetation is dominant in the Accra Basin, and hence there is more room for improvement and development. And the Accra Basin has more power potential. So in as much as we are trying to look for renewable sources of energy, we shouldn't leave the Accra Basin out, because it can be very helpful in our quest to quench doomsday. Also, the annual firm power and energy that can be produced ranges between 330 kilowatts and 808 kilowatts, and then 1.69 gigawatt hour and 4.14 gigawatt hour respectively. Let me add emphatically that these results are for minimum flow during dry years, 90% available. So you can imagine if the flows are high, if there is more runoff, it means that we are going to generate more energy than what I have presented to you here. Please, let's all work together and make Ghana a developed country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eunice Atefua, for sharing your research work with us. I think we noted our questions as well. And we are sure if we had given you more time, you would have gone into details and explained some of the things better. But thank you very much. At this point, we'll take the last presentation for this session, and I would like to call Mrs. Kwashi to come forward. She would actually introduce herself and where she's coming from, but she's with the University of Energy and Natural Resources, and her presentation will be on alternative sources of energy. If she's here. Okay, thanks.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All protocols observed. I'm Mambi Abakwashi, a PhD student. I'm from University of Energy and Natural Resources. I'm going to highlight mainly on bioenergy. And with this particular type of energy, it's really on our blind side. Most of us are not actually looking at that area, and that is what I'm going to talk about. The various headings that I'm going to talk on will be on the various concepts, that is the thematic areas for this dialogue.
Sorry.
animals to drive the economy. And from manpower to drive the economy, we move on to the mechanized labor. That is the burning of coal and wood. Then we went up to the oil and natural gas extraction, and now it has landed us in global energy crisis as at now. So what are we doing? There is the need for diversification. Population mainly, it's number one key factor when it comes to energy demand. And globally, we have 1.3 billion people, which is equivalent to about 10% of the global population that lacks electricity. And when it comes to the developed country, and especially the sub-Saharan Africa and in developing Asia, we have about 70% that also lack electricity. And also from the sub-Saharan Africa, we have about 13% of the global population who are also reported to not have access to energy. In Ghana, our homeland, what is happening? We also depend solely or mainly on fossil fuel and hydro. And this has led to some challenges like the depletion of the biodiversity, greenhouse effects, global change, that is global warming, health problems, and others. Now let's look at the key sources of Ghana's energy supply challenges. Where are they coming from? We have high dependence on fossil fuel, so that is landing us in this kind of problem. High dependence on energy sources that, like the Akosomo, which is mainly dependent on the weather and climatic conditions. Then we also have high cost of solar panels, which is also bringing us down in terms of energy. Then poor energy conservation. In our various homes, how do we conserve the energies? High energy demand in relative to supply. The population is going up, so we have high energy demand, but the supply is limited. Then we also have unexploited or unidentified sources of energy. We have a lot of energy there that are unexploited, or we have not even identified them. Then poor linkage between industry and academia. How well are they using our findings, our research findings? Are the industries using them? Inadequate skilled labor, that is for installation and maintenance purpose. Let's look at other alternative sources of energy. We have the incineration, gasification, and so on for solid waste, bioenergy from fecal or biomethane, and others. We have the gas, we have wind energy, biomass energy, solar power, and others. These are the other things that we can use for our energy. Let's look at relevance of higher education towards the resolution of this problem. How? I have classified this in 4 areas. Financially, first, it will raise production. If we involve higher education in the midst of our crisis, it will help us raise production. How will it help us to raise the production? Because we are going to adapt productive energy sources. It's also going to create job opportunities and replace the retired people that we have. Emotionally, it will also inculcate energy conservation values and morals, as well as assist us in adapting a particular standard in order to manage our energy. Social point of view, what will it do? It will also help us to build our capacity and the technical know-how of the industry. It will help bridge the gap between the energy sector and higher education. It will also help provide community services in areas of energy and development. Then intellectually, it will also help us to build knowledge in areas that relates to energy. It will also help us to disseminate and use the knowledge that we have built through interaction and communicating of research findings to the society. Then it will also help us to maintain the knowledge that we have acquired. How? Through publication, by storing them, and also through transmission of the knowledge to other people. And this will act as a basis for us to do further research and to come up with other innovations. Let's look at some basic facts about fecal energy, and that is where I'm coming from. Fecal energy. The annual waste of 5 people, just 5, can produce a tank of biomethane. Treated poo, in other words, fecal energy, that is fuel briquettes, can also burn 2 times longer than the normal charcoal. So why don't we go into that? Each metric ton of briquettes, that is from fecal, can save about 88 trees that is being cut. Then we also have energy content of the dry and the charred from the fecal sludge. That is also similar to coal. So if we are taking off coal, which is going to destroy our environment, why don't we go in for fecal energy? Then unlike coal, which is mine, fecal is not mine. And here we have a lot of values in this. Let's look at, in terms of environment, it protects the environment and help reduce sanitation problems. One key thing, especially Ghana is grappling with, sanitation. It will help reduce sanitation problems, which causes 1/10 of the world illness. So if we go into this, virtually, we are also reducing Ghana's illness by 1/10. Exploitation of the resource that is fecal turns the disposable problems that we have. We just throw anything anywhere. What is really happening? Open defecation. If we go into this, it's going to help solve that problem. Fecal waste of 1 billion people with no sanitation facility at all. What about $376 million of methane production? Enough to power about 10 to 18 million households. What a wonderful energy. Let's look at the residual, that is the biosolids. Here we are even talking about just the methane, the gas that is given off. Let's look at the solids. The solids. It could also produce energy equivalent to 8.5 million tons of charcoal for industrial use. Then in sum, what I would say is that fecal can produce resources like what? Methane. We are also going to get hydrogen gas from that for energy as well. We are also going to get water. Recently in Senegal, there is a project on Bill Gates that turned fecal water into drinking water. If we can go that level, and Bill Gates tested that water, you can search it online. Then we can also turn the biosolids into charcoal and briquettes. Energy supply in Ghana, what is happening? Mainly dependent on fossil fuel. Here we are looking at how feasible and realistic is fecal to the solution of our crisis in Ghana. Because we are depending so much on hydro and fossil fuel, one thing is that it's going to deplete our environment, and it is still depleting it, when it comes, especially when it comes to fossil fuel. But when it comes to fecal, there is nothing of that sort. Fecal also promises to one of the most reliable energy sources. Why? Excretion is part of life processes, and everybody goes through that part of life processes. So what happens? Daily production of excreta is about 130 grams of feces and 1.6 liters of urine per person per day. So each one of us produces this per day. Availability of the fecal waste, very, very sustainable. Whereas hydrogen and crude oil are constraints. Why are they constraints? Environmental factors. They are mainly dependent on environmental factors. Fecal is always produced by man. So till the last man dies, fecal goes off. So though hydro is renewable, fecal is more renewable. Whilst what? Fossil is non-renewable. Those from the engineering side will bear witness. The relative cost of obtaining energy from water and crude, what happens? They are really high. Our dear sister was talking about the hydro. Yes, it will help. How do you call the others? It will help. But let's also consider costs. And that is the angle at which I'm coming from. let's look at energy composition. The population of Ghana, as at 27th November, is about 29,717,764. If each person will produce 130 gram of FICA per day, let's look at the estimate. Let's look at the estimate of FICA that we are producing per day as a country. Now let's look at the calorific value of FICA. It is 17 mj per kg solids. That is the value of FICA, the energy that we are going to get from FICA. So let's just do the multiplication. That will give us 3,863,360 of FICA, and that it is equivalent to 65,676,258.4 mj per day. So this is the amount of energy we are throwing out there, unconcerned, and we are not even directed to it. And this can help a lot in the solution of our problems. Environmentally, let's look at it. FICA has very low environmental impact. 95% less carbon dioxide, 80% less the nitric acid. Okay. Then we have no particulate emission as compared to diesel.
Can I help the next?
Just fix. Okay. Now let's look at some examples of countries that are exploiting this resource. In Ghana, we have problem with sanitation problems, and we are not doing that. The advanced countries who don't have much of a problem with sanitation are rather using this kind of resource. If we take Sweden, Sweden is the leader in the use of biomethane gas, and they are normally using it to power their trucks and buses. UK in Bristol, they are also using it to power their homes. And in Reading in UK also, they are also using it for their vehicles. And even in Kenya, an African country, is also using that as an alternative source for their charcoal. We have some pictures here that, these are some of the pictures of what is happening in UK. They are using it to power their buses. So now we have this thing they're called the pool bus, which is making use of the biogas.
The picture is this one is you go on.
Yeah. And that is the briquette for charcoal in Kenya. So I conclude by saying that Ghana, we are so much dependent on fossil fuel and hydro, mainly. Why don't we channel our resources in tapping this kind of resource that can help energize the country? And this will help us achieve the sustainable goal 6, 7, and 13. And also that of the Agenda 2063. That is the aspiration 1 of the Agenda 2063. I conclude by saying that the world is really ignoring the power hidden in human dung. Fuel is one product That we can be sure of an unending supply till the last man dies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kwashi. I think we've just been educated on an interesting source of power. On that note, I think we'll bring the first part of this dialogue to an end. We would break now. We'll take a group photograph and then we'll break for tea. And for the second part, we would actually start the main dialogue, and it will be facilitated by Dr. Violet Makuku. And then we would have a presentation from the University of Cape Town. They will join us via Skype, and then we would go through the communique. We have a group of rapporteurs. There's a chief rapporteur being assisted by 4 others who are taking notes. So they will take us through the communique and what they've taken so far. And then we would have the closing remarks, end the program, and have lunch, and then we would go. So at this point, I think it's time for the group photograph. We'll take it here. Okay. So we'll take the group photograph and then we'll break for tea and come back for the main dialogue.
The tea just 15 minutes because we are behind.
Okay. We are behind time, so I'm told tea would just be for 10 minutes or 15 minutes so that we can all come back for the dialogue and then end quickly.